This man confessed to killing 39 people. But when police searched his house, they found no evidence that any of them had ever existed. This case will blow your mind. He traveled around the country committing murders, sleeping with prostitutes, and evading the authorities. Little was born in Reynolds, Georgia on June 9, 1940. He grew up in a poor family and had a difficult childhood. When he was just 8 years old, his mother left him and his siblings to go live with her sister. But he didn't pay these women with money. Instead, he paid them with affection and then killed them. He even managed to stay off their radar despite the fact that he was wanted for questioning in connection with more than 90 murders. Little was finally caught in 2012 after a fingerprint from a crime scene matched his. He was arrested and taken to jail. While there, he confessed to being a serial killer, but refused to tell the police anything about his victims. The first murder he was linked to was in 1970 when 24-year-old Dorothy Arnold was found dead in San Francisco. To this day, he's considered one of America's most prolific serial killers. But because he never gave the police real victims' names, many of the murders he confessed to might never be solved. If you ask me, it seems like he wanted to brag about his supposed crimes, but never really wanted to be caught. Why else would he have tried to bury his victims in the first place? There have been quite a few reports over the years claiming that certain missing persons cases have been linked to Samuel Little. She was last seen getting into a car with an acquaintance, but nobody knows what happened to her after that. Samuel Little was later said to have confessed to killing Callahan. But he never led the police to her remains, and he eventually recanted his confession. Today, her body has still not been found, and nobody knows what happened to her. That was a series of gruesome murders that took place in England between 1975 and 1976. A total of 13 women were killed. But the culprit was never caught. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're down there, make sure to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our future videos. I'll see you next time. Bye. Today, there is still debate over whether the police were racist, and if so, did that play a role in the case going unsolved? Many believe that if the police hadn't been so blinded by their own racism, they may have caught the killer. But unfortunately, that's a question that will never be answered. But at the end of the day, none of these reports have been confirmed. We may never know the truth about what he did, or if he was lying about killing anyone at all, despite the fact that some of the women may have gone missing decades ago. The fact that none of them have been reported missing makes it seem like Little may have fabricated those names too. During that time, he continued to claim that he was a serial killer. Or maybe he hated all women and felt that killing them was a way of striking back against society. Another possibility is that he actually didn't kill any of these women, but instead he was stalking them or beating them up. Perhaps he was trying to scare them, but the women somehow managed to escape, and Little claimed that he killed them. It's also entirely possible that he was lying about everything and has gotten away with murder. But if that were the case, wouldn't there be more evidence to support it? There's no DNA linking him to a crime scene. And he always refused to take the police to the bodies. But instead of telling the police what he had done, he wrote a storybook called The Little Murders. It detailed the crimes of a fictional serial killer, but it was obvious to everyone that it was based on Little himself. She had been strangled with a pair of pantyhose, and her head had been smashed with a hammer. They flew out to California to meet with him, but he still refused to give them any information. At times, he said he'd killed 9 people. Other times, he said he'd killed 50. By 2018, he'd told the police about 90 names of women he said he'd killed. Others think that he was telling the truth, but that the police have simply failed to find his victims. Could there be dozens of missing persons cases that are actually connected to Samuel Little? I think it's possible. But as far as we know, he never gave the police a real victim's name. Instead, he told them that he only murdered 7 people and that the rest of the claims were false. He also said that he would unlead the police to the bodies because he had already buried them. At the time, police suspected that Little was responsible, but they couldn't prove it, so they let him go. and when he was 14, his father sent him to live with his aunt instead. After failing 9th grade, Little dropped out of school and joined the U.S. Marine Corps. Unfortunately, he was soon discharged after getting into trouble for having a weapon. Samuel Little was an American serial killer who was active between the 1970s and the early 2000s. After leaving the Marines, he started working as a mover. And this is how he met his first wife, Peggy. They had 3 children together, and it seemed like he had settled down for good. However, the couple divorced again in 1974, and at this point, Little's life of crime really began. They married when she was just 15 and he was 21. Their relationship was abusive, and after they had 2 children together, Peggy filed for divorce. In court, Little claimed that he suffered from mental problems and had violent mood swings, which was most likely true. But he also said that he had attempted suicide twice and that he had killed 2 men in self-defense. The judge took pity on him and only sentenced him to 1 year in prison. In 1967, Little married another woman named Patricia. He started traveling all over the country and sleeping with prostitutes. Little would evade the police for decades. Little spent the next few years flipping back and forth between jails and mental health facilities. Finally, in 2014, Little agreed to speak with some investigators. Over the next few years, Little continued to flip-flop about the details of his crimes. On December 30, 2020, Samuel Little died of a heart attack while in prison. He was 80 years old. That brings us to today's question. What happened to the victims of Samuel Little? Some people believe that he was lying about killing anyone. What makes this case especially strange is the fact that Little often boasted about his crimes, but never gave away any information about where his victims' bodies could be found. There are a few ways to look at it. Maybe he genuinely believed that his victims had brought this upon themselves because they chose to work as prostitutes. Unfortunately, we may never know exactly what happened to those women. One of the most well-known cases is that of Mary Jane Callahan. In 1975, Callahan disappeared from Houston, Texas. It's important to remember that Little confessed to killing dozens of women, but none of them have been found missing. As I said before, there is a chance that he was telling the truth and that the police just have linked him to these crimes yet. Honestly, I think this case is much like the case of the Yorkshire Ripper. The same is probably true about Samuel Little. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think Samuel Little was lying about his crimes, or was he telling the truth?